This is Kathryn Goetzke, host of the Hope Matrix podcast. We are here to share science, stories, and strategies for how to hope. I'm the Chief Hope Officer of the Shine Hope Company, and Shine is the mnemonic for how we teach hope. So when we talk about hope, we talk about how we use stress skills, happiness habits, inspired actions, nourishing networks, and eliminating challenges, which are our thinking patterns that get in the way of our ability to hope. Hope is a skill. You can measure hope, you can teach hope, and you can start practicing skills to activate higher hope in your life today. And on this Hope Matrix podcast, we aim to bring in guests, experts in science, people with stories, and those that have strategies for activating hope in your life.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hope Matrix podcast. This is Kathryn Goetzke, your host, and I'm grateful to be here and not thrilled about the inspiration about what drove this conversation. It was actually the recent tornadoes in Arkansas with just profound devastation of so many people, and me thinking I really need to delve into this further because during times of just environmental really destruction, it's easy to just fall deep into hopelessness, that state of despair and sense of helplessness, and develop things like clinical anxiety, depression. And so the goal of this is to have a really honest conversation around it and to talk through it and talk about strategies. So it's really amazing. I'm grateful that Kristi Kandel is here with us today. And so welcome, Kristi, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Kristi was, and I'll let her share more, but she was part of A, the fires in Tahoe, B, the hurricanes in Florida, and has actually taught the community and really activated the community around a response for it. But we won't jump too far ahead. But I learned more about the work she's doing through just posted it on Facebook saying, who's experienced something and navigated their way through it, because it can feel so totally devastating. You feel such a sense of despair and such a sense of helplessness. And if you can see this, most of you are listening, but if you can see the video, if you look behind Kristi and you look at the destruction that happened from Hurricane Ian
in 2022.
Ian in 2022, and just how it kind of leveled the community, building businesses, homes, like total destruction. It's very challenging not to just sink into that state of hopelessness. So yeah, let's just start. Can you just share a little bit more about the experience you had, Kristi, and kind of what you guys went through and your story about?
Yeah, so I live in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, which was ground zero for Hurricane Ian that came through on September 28th of 2022. I know the date because it was 2 days after my birthday, and we welcomed by this wonderful storm. Apparently, ice storms on the west coast of Florida do not treat us very well, so we'll be looking out this year. But basically, we had the storm coming, and it was going for Tampa, which I used to live up there, and there's a protected ground, and hurricanes always seem to miss them at the last minute. But it seemed this time that it was heading there. A couple days before, it made a right turn, and it was headed for Sarasota, which is still an hour and a half north of us. And the morning before, at 11 a.m., my phone blew up with text messages, and they said, "Did you see the news?" And we were in the process. I was going to go to the east coast of Florida just to be safe in case there were surges. And we were on the street, walking our dogs, talking to neighbors. Everyone was unsure what they were going to do. And then I read that, oh no, it's coming straight for us. So that was at 11 a.m. By 12:30, we were off the island. We finished packing up the house. And then it was a day and a half of playing waiting games. One, to see did we have anything left, and two, to see did our neighbors all make it. And it was one of the most difficult times of my life because the unknown is really the hardest.
And the waiting, that like waiting period feels like forever, I'm sure. Wow. And so what happened kind of next?
Yeah, so basically I ended up staying at my friend's house on the East Coast, and I was watching the news all day the next day, and I got a text from one of my neighbors, and one of their security cameras was showing that the water was already above the garages, and it wasn't stopping. We still had a 3:30 p.m. surge that was coming. And the thing with Ian that happened is it was the force of Andrew that came through 20 years earlier, but Andrew would have fit in the eye of Ian. So this was a massive storm that also just sat. It slowed down to, it was either 9 or 12 miles per hour and literally just sat on us. And what it did is it emptied out Tampa Bay and it dumped all the water onto Fort Myers Beach. So we had, depending on where it was on the island, it was 12 to 18 feet surges. So I'm watching the news, just hoping like everyone else, going, oh my gosh, like what is left? How, are the people going to be safe? We were talking to a friend on Facebook who had stayed, and they had moved into the 3rd floor of their house. The walls were cracking, the ceiling was leaking, and the water was still coming up. And I remember telling Ryan, I said, oh my gosh, we might be talking to a dead man. And there's no words for that except to keep messaging and providing comfort. And thankfully, the water did finally stop, and they were able to get out to a concrete structure. And it was just another waiting game. So it happened on Wednesday. On Friday morning, I was watching CNN with my friends, and it looked like there was a clip that might have seen the roof of my house. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, is it possible that I still have a structure out of this? Because all the news clips that were coming through, once the storm had cleared, were showing the devastation behind me. They were showing that everything was wiped out. We had 90% of the island was destroyed, 100% of the businesses, because they were all first floor businesses. And just the thought of, oh my gosh, there might be something left. Maybe I'm part of that 10%. Maybe I'm lucky. So I ended up borrowing my friend's SUV and packing up my bike, driving across Alligator Alley and coming over. I had some friends try and come in with me, but the Bonita, there's 2 ways to get on. The bridges from the Bonita Springs area were closed, so the only way on was the bridge behind me. So I get around and put the bike together, and I'm biking up. And I just, you had to show your ID to say that you were a resident to be able to get to your house. And I just couldn't stop the tears from flowing. And I knew from before, when some tragic things had happened, you have to feel the emotions. You just have to feel the pain and let it go. And don't try and hold it in. Don't try and numb it. So I just let it go, and I didn't care what anyone thought of me. Biked to the top of that bridge, and that's when I saw it. I saw everything that was below, and it was just devastating. And then you have the smell and the stench of death and destruction, and it was terrific. It looked like the apocalypse had happened. It looked like a bomb had gone off. And Times Square, which is what we called our downtown behind me, it had turned into a hub where we had the National Guard, the first responders, and everyone there just in massive search and rescue at that point. So I just, at that point, that's when my emotions actually stopped and the shock kicked in. And I just became a little bit numb and just was like, okay, I guess I need to make it to my house and see what's left. And I had only packed 5 days of clothes, going, oh, maybe the power will be out for 5 days. So I ended up biking down and through, and it was as bad as they said it was. The weather people are always wrong. This time they were right. It was maximum damage. So thankfully I was able to get to my house and get to my street, and I'll never forget the terror in the eyes of my neighbors who stayed. And every day when I walk my dog down the street, I look at their house before we turn and go down the road. And I just remember the terror in her eyes when she looked at me and she said, Kristi, when the water came into our 2nd floor and we were wondering if we should take it to our 3rd, and we just looked out and there was water everywhere and there was no land. She's like, you can't even describe it. And it was heartbreaking, because we know now the water went down, but imagine it coming into your 2nd floor and just, I don't know. So then I was, thankfully, my house was part of the 10% that survived, and it was just a significant amount of money that I paid out of pocket outside of insurance. But every day I have a constant reminder as I walk down the street, there was Tommy and Frank and their two dogs on the corner, and they were in this yellow house that they had stayed at because all prior hurricanes weren't bad, but unfortunately they didn't make it and the house had collapsed. So every day we walk past that corner lot as I'm taking my dog on a walk, and it's a constant reminder just to be grateful and to live every day as well, because we're not promised another day.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Wow. That's pretty intense. Like, what did you do? Like, the next? I mean, it's like you're in such, at first it's the sadness, and then you go into that shock. We know that with immediate things. And then it's like, how do you start doing something?
Yeah. Well, I had already had a bunch of trips planned for the month of October of things that we had previously done. I had booked a trip with a friend to Aruba, and I was going to Morgantown to spend time with my sister. I had a friend's wedding in California. So thankfully I had distractions, but at the same time, I was just in a state of shock. At that point, you're dealing with SBA, you're dealing with FEMA, you're dealing with insurance, you're dealing with your local government who, let's face it, they're retirees who came down to be city managers so they can wear flip-flops and fishing shirts and have this awesome retirement life. They're not set up to handle destruction like this. They don't know how to handle the county, the state, the federal agencies, and how that goes. So communication was not very good, but it's not very good in a lot of these places that get destroyed because people don't know how to handle it and aren't prepared. So there was one access onto the island. So they were constantly shutting it down. So people would travel and fly in from wherever they had been staying, and then they couldn't get to their home. So it was creating a lot of anger and animosity. Thankfully, I do invest in real estate. So I have a duplex in Naples Park, which is about 30 minutes south. So I was able to just block that out and temporarily live in that for a month, or a couple months. And then so that way I was close enough. So when they did open the island, we could come up and either ride our bikes in and get more stuff or drive in. And there was just a lot of confusion for the month or two after that. And it was just trying to figure out, how do we go forward? When are we going to get utilities? It was a couple of months before people could get power and get water. It was actually 2 months to the day of the hurricane that I was able to move back in with my dog after Thanksgiving. And granted, nothing was open. It took us until July of the next year, so 9 months later, to get the first thing, which was a grocery store, open. So you could live there, but it was like you were camping. So I just remember being so grateful 2 months later, walking to the beach with my dog and seeing the sunset. And despite all the distraction around, to go, okay, this is going to be okay. It'll take a long time to come back, but this is going to be okay. Right. And then something else I had done right away was I'm a big fan of therapy, and we have a coach and mentors for every other aspect of life. Of course, we should have one for our mental well-being. So immediately I had called my therapist and said, 1, are you okay? Did you make it? Okay. And 2, let's start setting up these sessions because there's a whole lot of stuff to start processing.
Yeah, that's amazing, because it's oftentimes when we go through these big things that we don't make time for the therapy, and yet it's so important. So what did you go over in therapy? Like, was there emotional processes for feeling the emotions and like getting the emotions back on track? I mean, we shut down as a protective mechanism, but if we want to feel, we need to feel.
Well, and as far as therapy goes as well, I'm a big fan of EMDR. So that is just a great way, whether you're using fingers and following them or a light bar, but it's just taking the traumatic experience that happened, feeling those emotions, and then processing them to where you'll still feel them. They don't go away, but that trigger that throws you into severe PTSD and brings all the smells back and all the emotions and all the everything, it weakens that. So we started working on it to basically go, what just keeps haunting me the most. And we just worked from the most significant ones all the way down and through to where, I mean, honestly, it took until a couple months ago to finish processing.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But it's one of those things. I know the power of it, and I know how freeing it is on the back end, that to me it's worth it. And
yeah.
We don't feel like we're jamming it inside our bodies, that we're going to carry it with us anyway, so we can ignore it, carry it, impact us, or we can deal with it and not let it,
Exactly. Yeah. And one thing, and that's like our stress skills. We talk about therapy is stress skills. How do we manage our emotions in healthier ways? Therapy is a great way to have a place to do that and to start learning how to express our emotions, feel them, identify them, experiencing them, so we're not turning to those unhealthy things. And then another thing we talk about happiness habits. And like, when you talk about happiness habits and look at the picture behind you, it's like, how can you practice anything that's happiness related when you're in that state and surrounded by that state? And yet that's the most important time for you to work on your endorphins, because you have so many stress hormones in your body. And so you talked about things like gratitude, like being intentional about your gratitude, like getting to the water and experiencing moments of wonder and awe. And like, sounds like you were intentional about that. Is that?
It was 100% intentional, because I knew, so I had lost my uncle in 2018, and that was like losing my father. And I learned so many skills from going through such tremendous pain, that it was something where I knew that I needed to start immediately with those positive habits. So even if I didn't want to, waking up and meditating every morning, even if I didn't want to, reading a gratitude list, because I knew from the beginning, I knew there was going to be a silver lining. I knew there was a reason that this happened to me, to where I could then share and be able to take my story and my knowledge and give back to others. I also knew that I wasn't ready to go that far yet, but I knew I needed to take the steps. I remember a couple people on my team going, "Oh my gosh, this is a great opportunity for us to X, Y, and Z." I said, "I get it. I'm not there yet." Yes, I agree, but I'm not there yet. I'm still here in the thick of it. But now I should have the meditation and the gratitude and finding, what it really has you do? It puts a hell of a lot of things in perspective. And the things that we go, it's so annoying, or, this is crappy, on a normal day-to-day basis, if you really think about, oh my gosh, I'm alive. My dog's alive. Yeah. Not everyone on my street made it out alive. That's something to be freaking grateful for. So it's just the fact that I woke up and I'm still breathing today. So it's remembering that things like that, like those aren't small things, but we do take them for granted. And to be grateful for that, and just to remember the small things.
Totally. Absolutely. And then, the I is inspired actions of shine. And I think of like, when you came back that day, okay, so you thought, I got to find a place to live. I have a place to live. So that's kind of like, what specific steps did you do? Like, you come home and your house is gone from a fire, or you come home and a tornado has ripped up your business, or like, what practically are the specific things that you did to start? I mean, I would just not know what to do. Like, I would be lost. And I just, like, I was really thinking about that as the tornado. I'm like, I don't even know, what do you even do? So can you talk more to that, just more specifics on that?
Yeah. I mean, you Google it. Or in today's world, I would actually say go to perplexity.ai and say, my property was destroyed in a natural disaster. What do I do? But what I ended up finding out happens is FEMA will come in, as will SBA. But like anything that is a government agency, it's cumbersome. It has a lot of red tape. It takes time. It doesn't necessarily help you. Just generically what FEMA does, if you lost your entire house and you were one person with a house, they will basically help you out for one room and say, well, you need 4 walls and 1 roof. And so everything that they put around that is not based on what was lost and destroyed. It was, you get that. So SBA is, if you've ever tried to get a small business loan, it's very painful. It's the same when you do these loans, they basically want you to give your first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th born child. So I did not even end up going with it. Basically, if you take more than $25,000 in a low interest loan, there's so many hoops, it's not even worth it.
So they basically give you a loan to rebuild or to fix.
Yeah. So SBA gave a low interest loan. I want to say it was somewhere around 2 or 3%. Who knows what it is today? But so that was an option, but that takes a lot of time. As far as insurance goes, no one is your bigger advocate than you are. Unfortunately, with all of the amazing things and people coming together following the hurricane, there's also a lot of disgusting things that happen. There's a lot of people who come in and try and rip people off for the easy buck. You also deal with insurance companies where your adjuster comes out, they see it, they feel it, they write it up properly, and it goes to 2 or 3 more channels until it gets to the final number, and your number has been greatly reduced by that point. So unfortunately, especially if you lost your entire property, and I think every single HOA and condo association here, and we have, I believe, over 100, had to hire adjusters to go fight their insurance companies. That's
so you can
at least 1.5 years, most structures weren't touched unless they just were completely gone because they were still fighting insurance. So it's mucky, it's disgusting, it's horrible, it's not. So because of all that, so once you're done with that, then it's okay, well, now I need architects and engineers, and I need to start to either repair or come up with a way to rebuild my house, and I need to talk to lenders, and I need to do all of this. So that part I knew. Once I got through the other stuff, that part I knew. So we ended up building a database of resources and creating a website of restorefmb.com to where we put out architects and engineers and lenders, the permit, like just trying to out as possible, because I still couldn't turn the entrepreneur brain, and I'm a crazy I couldn't turn that in my head. I said, we have to help as many people stay on this island as possible before I will ever consider trying to make any money on this. So we created that. We got a list.
What's the web name again?
restorefmb.com.
M as in Mary, Frank, Mary, business.
Great. Yeah. Fort Myers Beach. Yep.
Okay, about it, Fort Myers Beach.
Yeah.
So like, that's amazing.
Researched every single family and duplex lot, because anything more than that, I'm like, fine, that's an investor, that's someone else who can come in. But I think we ended up sending 2,500 letters out, which one of the HOAs, because we don't have any mail service, one of the HOAs a year later got it. She's like, Kristi, is this real? I just got my mail from a year ago. I'm like, yep, it's real. But, we did it. It was, of course, it cost us a lot of money and it took a lot of time, but it was like, we have to do something. We have to try. And if one family can stay, and multiple families were able to end up staying. I remember a family from Canada, we worked very closely with, and again, not making any money, just sharing resources. And they were able to find all the ways to there's a 50% rule. If over 50% of your structure is damaged, you have to completely rebuild it to today's building codes. And this family, because of that, was able to stay under the threshold and be able to work their way through. And I was like, you know what? If that was the only family that it helped, awesome, because they didn't have to leave now. But we ended up helping a lot more. And it's just, you're in this as a community, and just if you the resources, share them. So
use your skills, whatever skills you have, marketing, business, real estate, and share in the resources for the community to help rebuild. I love that. So important. That's amazing.
And there were so many people that had businesses and restaurants, and they would have food to wear, because again, there was nowhere to our restaurants now are food trucks, and a lot of people, their permanent home is an RV, and it will be for several more years. So it was just awesome to see people who had businesses off the island coming in saying, hey, every Monday we're going to bring lunch and dinner, and we're going to have this for everyone. So you could be there working on your property. You had a warm meal you could go get. They set up temporary shower structures and just places to make you feel human. And I'll say, I avoided going and getting food for the longest time, because I'm like, I'm not a beggar. I don't want handouts. And so my pride had to get out of the way. And I'm like, damn it, Kristi, you have been here for 12 hours fixing up your property and dragging crap through the muck to get it out and to clean up, and you're hungry. They're literally bringing food here for you. You live here. You're a resident. So I had to cut through my little ego and go there and go, yes, actually, thank you for being here and thank you for giving this. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's amazing. Like, the pride, so important, and I'm sure that helped you to like create more community too, just going and talking with other people around it, Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so, one of the things we talked about too, just before we got on, is that trying to control things outside of our control, and how we can't, and we wait for like people to fix all it, like come in and solve all our problems for us. And if you do that and wait for the government, like, or like, we might be waiting forever. And so it's really important to also take some self-efficacy and try to innovate and solve problems with whatever skills we have, and then work with others in the community to do that.
100%. The biggest thing that really just got solidified, and I will never forget this lesson, and this coming from someone who has tried to control a majority of her life because that means safety, is that, I don't control anything in life. Literally nothing. And the only thing I can control is my response to what happens. Do you know how light that made me feel when I finally accepted that? The only thing I can control is my response to what happens.
Oh, no.
It was like a big burden lifted to be like, oh, I don't even have to try to control all of that anymore because I can't.
Exactly.
Not in the right direction, but I can't control it. So, okay.
So important. Yeah. It's very hard for me. It's a daily practice. So someone in recovery, the serenity prayers, my friend. I'm just reminding myself every day of that. It's I want to help everyone. I want to, I'm like, I can teach you the tools, but like, I can't make you hopeful. I can't do the work for you. I can't, change society. I can't, systemic oppression, and like, I can't fix them. This is what I can do. And other people have other skills. And I think that like, when your whole town gets wiped out, I think that's like, communities have to rally together and like, really, what are our skills as a community, and how can we, support?
Yeah, I didn't see that. I mean, in my journaling that I had written, because that was something I just knew, in my shocked state, I knew that there would be an importance of writing down how I felt every day and how it progressed through. Mm-hmm. And I just remember when I biked in and I was at the top of the bridge behind me, and I just felt such a hopelessness and a helplessness, and I felt broken. And I was like, where's that badass problem solver in me that figures stuff out, that always knows what to do? And I was just completely broken. I couldn't be that person. And the other thing is that I always try to be so strong and never need anyone else. That's not good either. If you're only giving in your relationships and you're not allowing them to give to you and to receive from them, that's not a relationship. No. It was a great learning experience. So, I mean, people say, how can you be grateful and have gratitude for tragedy? Because I became such a better person as a result. Yeah. I love the person that I am becoming. Yeah. And I'm going to keep growing and evolving until I die. Yeah. But I'm so grateful for what I've learned from this experience and the person that I came to be. Because there was also something else that was pretty significant that I came to understand, just 3 months ago, and that was self-love. I knew in my head I should love myself. I was like, sure, I love myself. In my heart, I didn't know how to. Yeah. And a couple months ago was the first time ever, at 37 years old, that I was like, oh my gosh, I love myself just as I am. I don't need to go keep achieving and doing something else, and maybe I'm good enough. Yeah. I'm good enough right now, just as I am. Yeah. That was also very powerful, but none of these realizations would have happened had this not happened, or they would have taken a lot more time to get to. Yeah. Yeah. That's the one thing we say about hope, like, I have to go through challenges to really figure out how to get to hope. You use that
we say hopelessness is both emotional despair, so you feel horrible, and then that sense of helplessness, so powerlessness, and you kind of describe all of that. And we all experience moments of hopelessness about different things really all the time. And some are really big things like that, that picture behind you and and some are little things like an email from a boss and it's like how we learn to manage those moments that matter and that, and they're all lessons. And yeah, some are harder and we resist more than others. What brought you to self-love?
Well, I had something else happen after the hurricane that was pretty significant too, which put me back into more therapy. And it was all of that process. And I always think of therapy as unpeeling an onion. And I just got to the layer where I think I was tired of pushing the rock uphill, and I was done trying to be perfect, done trying to be something that I thought everyone else wanted from me, done trying to control everything. And I had read, there was, I forget what list it was, but it was something about self-love I actually, on my daily affirmations after I meditate and read the gratitude list and that, I had said, I want to get to self-love, and I had something to that extent. And then one day it literally just came true. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I've been faking it until I make it. And I've read this so long to ingrain that in my conscious and subconscious to be like, hey, it's here. And you can also say, so I have a dog, she's 14 and a half. I got her when she was 9 out when I lived in Lake Tahoe. And I joke and I say, I got her to teach me how to love again. And then I went, oh, I got her to teach me how to love it all. And then just recently I went, no, I got her to teach me how to love myself. And that is the most powerful gift, because having that unconditional love every single day when the world's crapping on you and things happen, and you just have that little bundle of unconditional love that goes, hey, Mom, what are we doing today? I got you. And it helps. So it was of all of that.
Wow. I know, and they look at you with such love. It's like, oh my God, that's super powerful. And so important, that's part of, we talk about nourishing networks in Shine, the N is nourishing networks, and, how love is so important. And loving others, and then, loving self, being compassionate with others, being compassionate with self, forgiving others, forgiving ourselves, and it's easier for us to forgive and love and have compassion for others than it is ourselves. And that's such an important part of the human journey, is learning to do that for self. Really, really powerful. So did you get insurance money? Like, are you back in your home? Like, what's the deal?
I smile at, did I get insurance money? I got $17,000. I ended up spending $175,000 on top of that. That was fun. But it was at the point, basically, if you didn't lose your structure, you came out of pocket $100,000 to $200,000. And in the grand scheme of things, we're alive. It's just money. Maybe money will start at some point, but it's just money. Money figures itself out. So ended up finishing actually my last repair in June. So a year and a half after the hurricane. And partially because contractors, we just don't have enough who are able to come in, and partially because some stuff just wasn't a super priority, and so just spreading out when you did certain repairs. But yeah, so year and a half after I finished all the repairs, and if I look out at my backyard, once I got my repairs done, I can almost pretend that nothing happened. Except every day we are all becoming construction experts as we see multiple properties throughout the island getting built. Just walking my dog to the beach every day, there's 6 new construction properties that are going on right now, getting the foundations in with the framing up and getting the rough utilities. I just stopped with one of my neighbors this morning. We were walking our dogs, and it was like, we're getting to be really good construction managers. Tell what's happening out here. So
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Yeah, one of the hardest lessons I learned from my dad is that money does not buy us happiness. So, my dad, he died by suicide. I'm pretty sure he knew that. And, he grew up in total poverty, and like it was his goal to have tons of money, and he had plenty of money and could do whatever. And he thought that would and that's what we call an extrinsic goal. And we know that doesn't, ultimately give us the satisfaction. And that's a hard lesson. And it's, very easy to say it's just money. And it really is just money. I mean, we can rebuild. I mean, to me, you're doing that. You're kind of a testament to that. Do you feel you're getting back on track and you're recovering? And
yeah, and I would say I am grateful that I learned that lesson early in my career, and that's what ended up making me start my company. I had come out to California and was a developer, and I was, hanging out with people in Manhattan Beach. There were millionaires and billionaires and super wealthy and had made it. Not a single person was happy. I'm like, why am I climbing this corporate ladder to this place where I thought I wanted that stuff? And I don't, because if that's what the result is, I don't want that. And that's actually the catalyst that made me start my company in 2015. And then now, in February, it'll be 10 years.
wow.
I'm getting old, but yeah, 10 years with that. And then I've spun off a couple other companies. I actually just launched a brand new company that is to empower our local real estate investors and entrepreneurs to become the local real estate developers in their communities, so that they can transform those old buildings and vacant lots or these destroyed communities into awesome new assets that people can use. Because no one else, like our small and medium communities, got left behind in 2008 when the real estate market completely crashed and the developers focused on the big cities. And, almost 20 years later, and nobody's doing anything with our small communities. So it goes from a disaster recovery. So a lot of the structures that got destroyed here were older stick frame buildings and houses that weren't built to today's building codes. So part of what we want to do is, one, help transform small and medium communities to get the locals to be the ones doing it, but also in communities that are destroyed by natural disasters, to help them come up with plans and frameworks to maybe improve their buildings, their businesses, their structures before storm hits, or at least helping have a plan in place to be like, hey, here's a framework that we used here. You can use this in your community. It's like one of the things we're looking at here is modular construction, where you're literally building a building as if you were out here in the field, but you're building it in a factory. So instead of the electricians waking up, driving to their job site, getting the van, going to driving to construction, they're driving straight to the factory. They're put on, and then it ships in these modules that fit the DOT standards. And you've built the foundation in the field, you've built the utilities, and it can take you 3.5 hours to build a 2,000 square foot home.
Yeah, so much more efficient.
Half the cost of construction and a quarter of the time. So you talk about, and we can share ideas like this. That's where entrepreneur brain goes on. It goes, yeah, this is destruction, but if we can keep the costs down, we can keep more people here. We can rebuild affordably and attainably, so we can make sure that everyone can live here again, not just super wealthy people. So it's now my business mind is to go, okay, how do we do this? How do we make this scalable? How can we take other communities? So
yeah, I know, that's amazing. And say my most brilliant ideas come from my darkest times. As long as I stay in the dark, as long as I don't run from the darkness, I'm I wish that wasn't the case, but yet it is. And that to me with our youth, they're so persistently hopeless right now. I'm yeah, but if you can learn to manage that and to dive into it and to listen to the guidance from it and then innovate around it, you guys can change the world in so many ways. And I don't mean that in a blasé or, Pollyanna way. It's so true. And I think that most entrepreneurs would say that it comes from a super deep challenge and pain, or there's definitely an emotional energy behind it. And yet oftentimes we have to get pretty deep in the darkness before we kind of get to the innovation.
I think it's because our why has to be strong enough.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's tough. It is tough to do anything.
Right. Yeah.
And if your why is not strong enough, so I'm doing this because I'm grateful to be alive, and I'm doing this to help others, to even impact one person, and to create that ripple effect of saying, hey, look, I'm going to try and do this. And I know that that's going to build momentum for other people. And the reason that the youth can, have that ability and they can leave the hopelessness and go is because people like you are out there talking about it. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about grief. We need to talk about all the things that we say, oh, that's awkward. Let's not talk. This is life. This needs to talk about.
I know. Life is hard. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so important. So a couple of final questions. One is like, is there anything preventatively people can do living in disaster areas like that you think, God, I wish I'd done that before knowing what I know now? Like, is there any insurance you could have got that would have been better, or like?
No, what you can do is what you can do is reach out to everyone ahead of time. So the biggest thing that was the most horrible part and the helpless part and the just feeling broken and like you couldn't do anything was that you didn't know what steps to take and you didn't know how the outcomes would go. So everything I rebuilt, I literally said, okay, what does this cost? So when the next storm comes and does X, Y, or Z, okay, so now I have a database of this is what my costs are going to be. This is what it's going to take to rebuild it. So I'm literally creating that now. But you can also call your insurance company and you can talk to them. And I would encourage you, because I got denied so I split my insurance between roof, home, and flood, because it keeps the premiums down because the risk is separated. So home and wind denied me, and wind denied me because they said, oh, even though your roof lifted up and water came in and there was water damage, if you look on page 6, buried in clause 69, if we don't see visible damage, then we don't pay you. Duly noted. Now I know that for the future. So if you pick up the phone and call them and just start to ask questions, you can at least, even if it's to outline and say, hey, what's the process to submit a claim? What's the number I'm calling? How do I get in the queue? Because the faster you can get in the queue. So that is if you know that something's coming, whether fire is coming or a hurricane. Obviously, with tornadoes or with earthquakes, we don't know that they're coming. But if you know something's coming, I would say get far enough away so you are one of the first people to have internet access so you can start filling that stuff out. Or have phone a friends in other states who can start getting those applications going for you. And really just assessing and looking at your property. If you, like, one of the things I did this preventative, I used to have 2 trees that are not native to Florida that were in my driveway. They did make it through Hurricane Ian, but if you go right around the corner, there were 4 trees that were a little bit more exposed. They completely uprooted the entire road. So next time, if our storm is wind instead of surge, those trees could have smashed into my house and ruined it. So I got rid of them, and I put in trees that are native species that can't impact my property. So basically creating that, it's the same thing we talk about in Tahoe with fires. Have that defensible barrier to where you're getting the pine needles away, you're being proactive, you're cutting the tree branches, and you're shoveling your roof in case there's too much snow on it. Use your common sense and go, okay, this might be a little annoying to do now, but I'd much rather do this than spend months and years rebuilding and repairing after the fact.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, any final thoughts for people that, like, say they've just experienced a tornado?
Well, I had posted that I was going to be on this, and one of my friends is in Arkansas, right where that is, and she is also one of the lucky ones. And she also is feeling the survivor's guilt of going, oh my gosh, I'm alive, and my destruction is not as bad as my neighbors around me. But it's just, I would say, remember that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. And to try not to sink too far into the woe is me and having a victim mindset, because it does suck and it's terrible. But just say that out loud. Don't hold the feelings in, just express them. But also know that it's just baby steps. You just need to take one small step forward at a time. And then slowly you're going to start to see a little bit of glimmer of light come in and give you a tiny bit of hope. And that's all you need. You just need that tiny little glimmer of hope that gives you enough strength to make it through the next day. And that's all you have to do is take it one day at a time. Don't think, oh my goodness, how am I going to fix it? I'll just go, today, all I need to get done is this. Keep it small and just one step at a time. And eventually that hope will show itself. And then that's going to empower you and inspire you forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Our micro goals that we talk about, that, that's how you get out of that helplessness. It's like, what is like one little tiny thing I can do to impact this situation? Like, don't think about the whole thing. When I look at places I'm going to climb mountains, I don't look at the top of the mountain and focus on that. I look at the next step in front of me, Otherwise, I can just be like, forget it. I'll do it another day. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same way with our world. If we look at our country, we go, oh my gosh, we're so screwed up.
Yeah.
But so that's where I broke it down with my business and said, okay, well, we're going to create local entrepreneurs who, and our crazy goal is that we take these communities and we get the people who live in them to become the developers building the properties and then become the business owners running the businesses. And then to possibly even create something where they can invest, the community can invest into those projects as investors. And now you've created a community that is self-sustaining and actually enjoys each other because they're all participating and sharing in that. And what if our small communities then ripple up to our medium communities? And then that ripples up. Like, what if we could change the world one small community at a time?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Micro goals and then our SMART goals and then our stretch goals. So it's important, to do all of them. So it's been so helpful and enlightening and inspiring. I mean, did you think that you would be here based on where you were? I mean, like on the bridge.
I didn't know that I'd ever be living here again. There were so many unknowns. There was the fact that I am here right now and the resiliency of everyone who just rolled up their sleeves and said, no, I'm not going to shut down my business. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and reopen it and make it happen. Like, it was everyone's little step forward that just empowered everyone else. So I am so proud to be here and to be a resident of this community because we are so dang resilient. And just, it's awesome. So no, never thought I would be here, but most things in life have kind of come as a surprise, and I just kind of accept it and go, okay, I can't wait to see what the universe gives me next, because you know what? It will. There's always going to be another mountain. And when we get to the top and maybe things are coasting for a little bit, you will be thrown to the bottom of the next mountain, and you will then get out of the muck and you will start climbing up that. And I think when you just embrace the fact that you are never going to just be standing on top of the mountain, you will always thrown down, fly back up, and you, oh, okay, so that's the purpose of life. So be grateful for the times of peace, exactly. But also just don't get too low when life does throw you a curveball or sucker punches you or smashes you into a wall, because it will happen. Yeah. That's why you have your network and your support and your furry kids and everything around you to help you as a community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, we can do hard things. We can, gotta be intentional about it, and we can.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. How can people learn more about you and your work and all that you're doing and get engaged in your projects and just learn about you? And I am so grateful.
I would say there's probably two ways. If you find me on LinkedIn,
awesome. Kristi Kristi, and then it's Kandel, Kristi Kandel. Awesome.
Yep. Find me on LinkedIn, and then what we created, probably the place that'll then take people everywhere else. So part of this whole rebuilding our communities started with the Freedom Hacker Movement. So freedomhackermovement.com will then get you to a landing page that then talks about all the other stuff we're doing for helping to transform communities and empower local people to be the real estate developers. So basically anything to do with real estate development, anything to do with helping our communities, because me and my whole team, we don't want to just make money. We want to do things with a purpose. We want to transform lives. We want to make an impact. And that is everything that we do across the board. And that's why I jump out of bed every morning. Not that it's easy, but because it's worth it.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing, Kristi. It's been so good reconnecting with you. And we knew each other in Tahoe. Yeah, and I'm so grateful to you for being so vulnerable and open and sharing your story and the struggles along with the triumphs and like how you kind of navigated through. I think we learn from other people that have gone through similar challenges, and the more we can share the strategies that kind of work and also, what didn't work, I think the better off we all are. So,
100%.
yeah, really grateful to you. And listeners, thank you all for listening in. And if you're going through challenging times, let Kristi be that beacon of hope, that, we can do hard things and we can navigate seemingly very hopeless situations. We can rebuild, we can get to the other side, so many really important insights from this conversation. And, with, the news seemingly sharing one devastation after another, it's so important that we train ourselves and learn how to do it so that we're better equipped. Because if we fall into hopelessness, into that despair and helplessness and develop, severe PTSD where we can't do anything, or clinical depression where we can't even get out of bed or do, it just doesn't help anything. And so being really proactive about those stress skills, about those happiness habits during our times of really significant challenges, and learning how to choke out those goals and doing like one tiny step at a time. Before you know it, you'll be sitting where Kristi is with a story to tell about how she navigated something seemingly so impossible. So yeah, really grateful. So thank you to all for listening in, and please do share this with others and other communities and those that are struggling, and check out the resources. It really can be applied to floods or fires or tornadoes or, really natural disasters, and they're happening all over the place. So, and instead of, especially with our youth get stuck in states of hopelessness about it. They see the news and then they just think there's nothing they can do. And there actually is something you can do. There's ways to use it to transform communities and really humanity through it. So thank you, Kristi, for teaching us just how to do that. It's really awesome. Thanks to all for listening in and sharing with others so that we can create a healthier humanity that moves forward. Thank you. And no matter what life brings, got to keep shining.
So thank you all for listening in to the Hope Matrix podcast. We want to shine a light that hope is teachable, hope is measurable and teachable, and provide you with actionable insights for how you can start activating hope in your life today, and provide a framework so you can start talking about hope with other people and practice these skills together, because we are better with hope. Please feel free to check out the shinehopecompany.com, where we list all of our resources around how to hope. We have a lot of free programs for how to hope, including the 5-day challenge, our hope infographic with a lot of skills that showcase how to hope, and articles of how to incorporate hope into your life. We have the Hope Beat Weekly, which is a weekly newsletter that shares strategies for hope. We have a My Hope Story template, so you can write your own hope story today. Also, My Hope Heroes, so we can share what our heroes are doing to activate hope in their lives. And this is especially good with youth, so they can start looking up to people that have overcome similar challenges to them and seeing how these heroes use the Shine Hope framework. We have a Hopeful Minds for Teens program, a Hopeful Minds overview, educator guides. We have a new evidence-based college course, so you can activate hope on the college campus. There are programs in the workplace, overview courses, 90-minute courses for learning the what, why, and how to hope. What I want you to know about hope is it's a skill. You've got to practice these skills to become hopeful. It's easy to fall into despair and helplessness when we deal with challenges in life, and it takes intentional work and practice to get to hope. And yet it is always possible. So no matter what life brings, keep shining hope. Thanks so much for listening in. Have an awesome day. And of course, I've got to add that this program is designed to assist you in learning about hope. It should not be used for medical advice, counseling, or other health-related services. I, Fred, the Shine Hope Company, and myself, Kathryn Goetzke, do not endorse or provide any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I am not a medical doctor. The information provided here should not be used for the diagnosis or treatment of any medical condition. and cannot be substituted for the advice of physicians, licensed professionals, or therapists who are familiar with your specific situation. Consult a licensed medical profession or call 911 if you are in need of immediate assistance. And be sure to know the crisis hotline, 988, if you are in need of support. Thanks a bunch for listening. Take good care of yourself and keep shining hope.